Plasticine printing introduces you to the principles of relief printmaking. Start with your piece of plasticine. It doesn't have to be new and it can be reused numerous times. Warm it in your hands just by rolling it around, and then roll a tube, a nice even tube which will form part of a coil. Now I roll from the palm to the tip of my hand, and I work from the left to the right and then go backwards and forwards. Apply even pressure, and it takes a little time to create a smooth, long, even coil. Once you're happy with this, you can then coil it round so that you make a spiral, and do this on the work surface rather than up in the air. Decide which is the best surface, and then on the reverse, just blend it a few times with your finger just to strengthen it slightly. You can also develop and adapt this by just rotating it round, but gently but firmly pressing onto the work surface, which will create 4 flat edges, so it resembles something of a Greek key pattern. Warm another piece of plasticine and roll it between your fingers, between your hands, to shape a ball. Then gently but firmly press this onto the work surface and move it around. Don't keep it in one position just in case it sticks. And I use the fleshy part of my thumb, as it seems to create the right amount of pressure onto the surface. Once you're happy with this, if you get a pencil and just press gently but firmly and impress a simple design onto the plasticine, but not too close to the edge. I've created another disc and also collected a fern and a little piece of twig. I'm going to place the fern onto the block and use a small piece of dowel as a rolling pin. So I'm going to impress the detail from the fern onto the surface. Then just finally peel off, and you have a subtle indentation which has something of a fossil-like quality about it. So moving on to printing, I use 2 pieces of paper, and the ink pads I use tend to go for bright colours. If they're too subtle, the impact is not sufficient. So you build up the colour by simply pressing repeatedly onto the little block, get a nice even coverage, and then transfer onto your second piece of paper. Again, gently but firmly press onto the surface to transfer the ink. You can then reload the block with ink and reposition and print. Before you change colour, I would blot this onto the scrap paper, and this piece of scrap paper may become a piece of artwork in its own right, so best keep hold of it and not throw it away. So I'm going to go for some contrast now with black. Placing this between the 2 orange spirals, and I've just rotated it round so there's a slight contrast. And again, if I was to change colour, I would blot it so I'm removing any excess ink. Spend a little time exploring different colours, the different processes, and see how the process works for you. you may find that after a few prints that you'll need to roll the plasticine together into a ball and repeat it. But if your designs are quite simple, you can then repeat them and carry on and continue with your experimentation. Once you've explored plasticine printing, how will you present these small examples? If you use sketch pads, you might like to encourage your students to cut them out and think about how they present them, and also make notes about the process. An alternative will be to do some weaving. Okay, you will need 2 of your prints, and I've cut them to approximately the same size, and on the reverse of what is going to be the warp, I have measured 1 centimetre down, and then I've measured these points here. I'm now going to join these up very quickly, and this becomes the warp. The next job will then be cut from top to bottom and stopping at the top point here. So you'll need to do these on the others as well. Okay, the second piece is what will become the warp, the weft. So the weft are going to be strips which you will weave through. They could be straight, but they could also have perhaps a curve to them. So there's an alternative there. So once you finish the weave, so this is a plain weave, and it will need to be glued down at the sides. Here I will just finish on the reverse. Make sure that the weave is pushed up really nice and tight, and then it needs a little bit of glue on the ends just to hold the whole thing in place. Now, an alternative will be to weave with some curved strips. So I'm just working under and over, and I'll get another of my curved pieces. This time I'll work from the opposite side and weave that through. And with weaving, the idea is that you do push them up nice and close, and I will just finish with one more just to give you an idea. So, 2 possible ways of presenting finished plasticine printing.